Hello and welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. I have made some camera changes, so if you guys have noticed some differences, that's what's going on. But more importantly than silly camera changes is what's going on out there. For years, we've talked about how we're in a vessel, we're in a vehicle, and it's a great way to think of which way are we going? We're going to shit it's the fan, whether it's a car or a bus or a train or it's a plane, and we're gonna come in for a crash landing, into the world of SHTF, the dystopian world where everything that's going on out here is going to change. Everything that is happening in our world, that's not the world we're going to have when shit hits the fan and what comes out of it. Whether we're talking about the social aspects, the political aspects, the economic aspects, all of it's changing now. We're seeing this push, this change, and they are big changes. They are going to be permanent changes in the way our world operates. And in order to transition from this paradigm of absolute lunacy, right? The politics are lunacy. The economics it's pure lunacy. Negative interest rates, zero interest rates, free money thrown around, monetary policy that has no end to the amount of printing and there's no consequences. Give me a break, right? Everything is just lunacy. But from this paradigm to whatever the future holds for us, there's this area in the middle called shit hitting the fan. And so we're preparing for that. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. Go to the preparedmind.club. Buy your goodies there. A little shameless plug for your store. We're cataloging, though, how we're getting to that place where our preps, where our plan comes into play. This is what we're doing, and we're cataloging it. And people go, what do you mean things have permanently changed or they've switched? Well, they have. I've got a couple of great articles here, and it shows without a doubt that the old paradigm, this political economic model, has changed. Rabobank, this is submitted by Michael Every of Rabobank. There won't be a trade deal breakthrough as China would have to change its entire economic model. It's just an interesting thought coming from a banker, right? In order to have the United States, President Trump, get what he wants out of China, they would have to change their entire economic model. In order for the United States to continue to do business as is with China, it would bankrupt us even faster. So that is what this conflict is about, is there needs to be a change to a different model. And it's being resisted on both sides, on all sides, because the economic model we're operating under, the fiscal model, the government fiscal spending, the monetary model, fiat currency, and this idea that you can finance companies and countries through the finance model, which is send all your money, don't save it in a bank, don't buy precious metals, don't be a prepper. Send all your money to Wall Street, and they'll take care of it and make sure the financial model supports the monetary and economic models, which give power to the political model to continue that game, and it's failing. So Rabobank says there won't be a trade deal breakthrough with China. That's right. I don't believe that either. We've been listening to Trump saying he's going to redo the deal, and China is putting their feet down going, we can't do the deal or we won't do it. They're not going to give in because their model has been built around this idea that the United States will send them a lot of cash, and that in turn, China will take some of that cash and reinvest it back into American what? Business, land, real estate, and buying our bonds, our treasury bills. That has been the model. Is we'll send you our cash and then you get to own part of our country and own our debt as well. And that is coming to an end. I've got another article here. Chinese firms dump $40 billion in global assets. They turn from a net seller for the first time in decades, right? They've turned into a seller of U.S. assets. Part of that is because the at the behest of Communist Party leadership, according to the article, Chinese conglomerates and investor groups have this year transformed from overeager buyers of foreign companies, real estate, and art into sellers of global assets. The shift comes as the party tries to tamp down capital outflows as China's economy weakens. Yes, China's economy is weakening. And so what they're calling capital outflows, which is Chinese businesses and investment firms and rich people, they're coming over and buying our real estate and buying into our stock market and buying T-bills. China is saying, hey, stop that, people. We don't want you to do that anymore. We're losing too much money. Well, that money is coming from U.S. people, right? U.S. people buy from U.S. corporations Chinese materials, goods. And so we send our money to China, and now China's saying, stop sending that money back to the United States. That's hurting us. But if they continue to do that, it hurts China. But how can that hurt China? They're getting all this trade surplus. That is what is holding up their economy, the trade surplus. Pumping all of that extra cash into the Chinese world has allowed them to build cities that no one lives in, to attract companies, to pay a little better wage to their people, right? They have horrible wage to, shall we say, profit ratios. But that's what's made doing business with China so profitable, because China can produce goods so much less than the United States can. So they become very attractive to U.S. corporations who want to, right, do what? Import them and then sell them to us. But we're saying, hey, our economy's not great. We're not going to continue to send you our cash. So China's saying, well, I guess we can't buy your stuff back. The system's coming to an end. And just this week, it looks like the European Union, like Europe, is in a full-fledged recession. Now, whether they admit it or don't, how they admit it quietly behind the scenes, or whether they recognize it in the paper and then do a glad hand to the people on the news and the newspapers and the satellite TV, Europe doesn't want to admit, hey, we're in a huge recession. This is going to sting for about 10 years. Get ready, grab your ankles, because you're going to pay more taxes, you're going to get less entitlements, and you're probably going to lose your houses, lose your investments in Europe as well. They don't want to say that. No country wants to say that. But that is what is being leaked out, little by little, piece by piece. This system is coming under, dare I say, attack. The system is showing its weakness, right? They can't even maintain parity, and that's really what Trump has been trying to do, in my opinion, to get to the 2020 election. He's trying to maintain the appearance that everything is just fine. He's trying to hold on to that, right? So, oh yeah, trade talks are coming with China. We're going to get all of this settled. And we've been listening to that for a year now. And strongly since we had that big, let's call it a stock market belch last December, especially since then, they've been using that everything's great with China. We're almost there. We're going to make a great deal. It's going to be good for the U.S. Everything is fine. Don't panic. Keep spending your money. Right? And that's what they want. They want American consumers to continue spending their money, because the current economic model in the United States is consumerism, purchasing. But if we're up to our necks in debt, right, barely keeping our heads above water, we can't continue this consumerism. And if we're seeing more job layoffs, the way we're seeing with GM, Ford, other major manufacturers that are slowing down, GM's going on strike, what do they expect us to do as the people, right? So that is why there's also this call for helicopter money, tax rebates, universal basic income. They want to pump more cash into the private sector. But as I said, this current paradigm has to end before we move to the new paradigm, the new political, economic, social, everything paradigm. You know, how the world will exist, what it'll look like. It can't operate the way it does now. This idea that we're going to get a trade deal with China can't happen. And it's now being talked about. There's no way this can happen. China is saying to its people, there's no way it can happen. And so they're pumping the Chinese people. Don't buy American goods. Don't buy the Apple phone. Don't do anything that sends money out of the country. Don't support American businesses. You know, I don't hear Trump saying that. I say it, I guess. You say it. We say, don't buy that Chinese crap. But he is saying we're going to put tariffs on Chinese goods, which is going to make them more expensive and less attractive to American consumers. He's already done that, and he's threatening to do it more. We're at a standoff. We're at kind of like the standoff in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is a three-way standoff shootout at the end. And so we've got Europe, we've got China, and we've got the United States. And nobody wants to move. They're all watching each other through squinted eyes and wide eyes, right? There's a little positioning and a little shuffling, and the hand moves closer to this, you know, to the pistola, and then it moves further away when they see the other guy is noticing. That's what we're dealing with here. Very much a good, the bad, and the ugly. If someone pulls, then right, shit hits the fan. But there's also a time limit on this, right? That standoff, that three-way standoff. If you could tolerate that beautiful Ennio Morricone just ramping up pressure soundtrack all day long, eventually the sun would set on that day. It would set on all of those participants in that standoff between Tuco and Angel Eyes and Blondie. Right? You would have that standoff end as a result of the sun going down. That is what's happening now. As economic activity comes down, as we get closer to an all-out crash anyway, whether or not someone moves, the sun is going to set on this current paradigm. We're going to have shit hits the fan. Right? When the sun goes down, right, someone's going to pull because they think the other guy can't see. It's going to be that bad. They're going to be that desperate. And what is at stake? Well, what's at stake in the movie was, I think, $200,000 in gold. Right? $200,000, in other words, a vast fortune. And that is what is at stake here to the players, right? They want their money, their wealth, their riches, their power. It doesn't really belong to them. Doesn't it belong to the people? Isn't it our economy and our country? Same with Europe. Isn't it the people's countries in Europe? What about China? They call it the People's Bank of China. I guess it's the People's Party, the Liberation Party, but it doesn't really belong to them, does it? All the decisions are made by the leaders, and the leaders are the ones who benefit, while the people under them suffer. Same with our country. The uber wealthy and the bankers right now are making all the money, while the people don't make much. Right? It's like different political systems, but they're not that different, because the results are the same. The powerful stay powerful, the rich stay rich, and the poor stay poor. The middle class is dwindling away in the United States, while the middle class in China is growing. And that is because of that trade imbalance, the excess of cash going over there. But it's all changing because Chinese firms are now dumping foreign holdings. They're selling, right? Which puts more cash in their hands back in China, because they need that cash. They need that value to keep what little of their economy is running, because they're going down. While Europe's slowing down. Their recession is very real. And here in the United States, we're seeing those signs. We're hearing more and more mainstream news outlets discussing recession. We're hearing more and more CEOs, CIOs, and CFOs talking about recession. And where this hits us is, well, could hit us directly as a result of job loss, us Americans. It could and will hit us as the economy comes down and there's even less tax revenue. Right now, the governments, local, state, federal, are suffering because they're getting less tax revenue as a result of lower commercial and business activity. There's less trade. There's less velocity, exchange of goods and services that the government taxes. And with less tax revenue, they're faced with a quandary. Well, if we have less, we can't give it to our entitlement mentality crowd. But we have a huge election coming up, so we need to continue to give them their freebies. We need to continue to give that to them, or they're going to lose control of them. Those people rely on Uncle Sam, right? Uncle Sam to give them free money, and that's going to be taken away from them. Right? That's going to be part of the chaos we have on the street as people lose their jobs and as entitlements shrink, as companies shut their doors. It used to be companies would move overseas, right? And people would just go get other jobs. But we don't have that economy now. You can't go get another job. In fact, unemployment is supposedly very low, even though we know the employment participation rate is much lower, meaning a higher percentage of Americans are just sitting at home saying, I don't want a job. I don't need a job. I can't get a job. Fuck it. And they fall off. And we still have very low unemployment, even with so many people sitting it out. But when they don't get their freebie money, right, when they have to go get a job, where are they going to find one? Especially with the big call for automation now. Like I said, we're going to a different paradigm. This is where we're at, and we're going to see a lot of change and a lot of pain and a lot of discomfort, a lot of angst. Right? We're going to have a massive, massive problem, and it's coming. Is it going to be next week, next month, next year, or just after the election? It depends. It really depends on what the president does. It depends on what Xi Jinping does. It depends on what the EU does. It depends on what the central banks do. It also depends on, can the system as it stands now support itself if a major event occurs, something breaks, whether that's a terror action, a military action, or an economic business corporate action, or a banking, what happens to break this and would cause it, right? And it looks like we may seeing that. We've been talking about that. A lot of people have, with the overnight lending practices of banks not being liquid enough to support their day-to-day cash needs. It's a very serious problem. That could snowball. That could domino and start affecting other areas. So let's be prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine. Means of self-defense. So when we get to that three-way shootout, right, that big standoff, that last move, right, we'll be ready. Yeah. So when shit hits the fan, you've got the best chance possible of getting through it, because chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. Thank you guys very, very much. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for supporting all of us here. Go to Patreon. If you're on Patreon, thank you. If you're not on Patreon, it's $2 a month to get material as soon as it's put out, to get additional links, commentary, and news stories sent to you. Thank you guys very much, and I'll talk to you very, very soon.